So I've got a book on my shelf that I wrote in Chinese, and I can't read a single word of it.
That is quite the feat.
My cat thinks that when I'm talking on a video that I'm talking to her, so she meows back to me. So here's your special guest today. This is Phoebe.
Very
So
cute.
if you hear anything, this is her. If someone is yelling at me because Pieces isn't working, I'm like, great, because this person cares so deeply about Pieces working. We are essential to their workflow. Yell at me all day and we'll fix it together or immediately, because that's what we want to hear.
Everyone loves getting paid, but at the end of the day, if you have a true passion about it, people are going to see that and they're going to know that, wow, this person actually cares about whatever they're advocating for.
I had a call with a user today and she was like, I got stuck on onboarding, but I went to your docs and your docs had some great resources in getting me through that. And so there you go.
One thing that, I want to shout out about our core group of internal developer advocates is that they're kind of like just a factory for good ideas. And it touches every part of our business.
They know everything about that person and who is following them and have we targeted their community before, and here's new places. So again, just a big shout out to our team. We're very, very grateful for our group.
Welcome to Coding in Context, the podcast where we dive into the latest trends in AI, interview influential figures in the developer community, and share insights on maximizing productivity as a developer. I'm your host, Mason Williams, software engineer at Pieces. And I'd love to introduce who we have on the show today, starting with Cole. Could you give a bit of a background? And if you have a fun fact, that'd be great as well.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Mason. I've been waiting a long time to get in this podcast. No, we just launched this podcast a couple of weeks ago. I'm Cole Stark, CMO here at Pieces. And I work with the rest of the marketing team to handle all of the communications that we do as a developer company, which is a lot of different channels, one of them being DevRel, but we are trying to create a community, and a lot of that falls under, reaching people at the right time and saying the right things and talking about our company and making sure they have a good developer journey as they interact with the content that we're producing. So I help manage a lot of those things along with Rosie and Jim, and excited to get into it today.
Awesome. And speaking of Jim, he's next up. One of the newest additions to the Pieces team. Jim, can you give a quick intro?
Yeah, thank you. So, hey, I'm Jim Bennett, Head of Developer Advocacy at Pieces. As Mason mentioned, I'm fairly new. I think this is week 4. I've just wrapped up today. So I've been in the tech sphere for way too long. I've been working as an engineer for 25 years. I've been doing developer relations for the past 6.5 years, working for Microsoft and then working for other startups. Mason, you mentioned a fun fact. You said to give a fun fact. One fun fact about me is I've actually published a tech book in Chinese, despite never actually speaking a word of Chinese. Years ago, I built an Internet of Things curriculum, and I was collaborating with an IoT company based in Shenzhen, and they wanted to make it into a book that's part of the Tsinghua University curriculum. So they translated it all into Chinese for me and published it. So I've got a book on my shelf that I wrote in Chinese, and I can't read a single word of it.
That is quite the feat. I can't say that quite yet, but you never know. Maybe I'll get another language so we can add that to the board. But Cole, did you have a fun fact that you want to say, or was your fun fact just that you do everything?
I forgot about the fun fact portion. Yeah, sure. My fun fact is, I've written an ebook, not in Chinese, on SEO. In my past life, I was at an SEO agency, so there's that. Not super fun, but I'd say something more fun. I've visited over 1/3 of all national parks here in the United States, and trying to get to all of them.
Wow. That's crazy. I know you were actually talking to Jim earlier today about some Northwestern parks, and I am looking out my window right now in Cincinnati, and Jim, you're absolutely right. It is way more green where you are than over here in the Midwest. Speaking of the Midwest, I wanted to introduce Rosie. You want to give a brief intro here?
Yeah, what's up? I'm Rosie. I'm the Chief Customer Officer for Pieces. If you hear screaming, that's my cat. So here's my fun fact is that my cat thinks that when I'm talking on a video that I'm talking to her. So she meows back to me. So here's your special guest today. This is Phoebe.
Very
So
cute.
if you hear anything, this is her.
Good looking cat.
I know, she's beautiful. Okay, but yeah, so what I do at Pieces is anything involving the users. That includes DevRel, because we need to hear from our users, and we also need to reach our users. And DevRel is one of the best ways to get to our users, because developer relations. So that's what I do.
Yeah, awesome. Obviously, this is the kind of core group in front of, every bit of content that we put out here at Pieces. We have an amazing content team. We have an amazing growth team, and it takes a lot of work. But it's super fun to work with all of these people. I work with most of you almost every single day, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But as we are talking about DevRel, I wanted to kind of go back to when we first started getting into. It was honestly right around the time Rosie joined. Actually, we really started to get into this DevRel community, this space, and really doubling down on the importance of it. And Cole, I wanted to start off. So thinking maybe back like last year versus now, what are kind of some changes in how we approach, marketing, especially to developers, but just our overall kind of growth strategy as a developer tools company?
Yeah, and that's a good point that you bring up. I think, over the past year, ever since I joined about a year and a half ago, our CEO, Savo, has always harped on the benefit of developer advocacy. And coming from a world out a little bit removed from dev tools and just in the broader tech space, it was a bit new to me, right? Because it's not a traditional marketing channel, and I still think that DevRel is early in its evolution of a channel in general. But it is really important, and the way that we've gone about it is as a very small team, is we're learning, right? We're trying out a lot of different strategies, talking to our existing users, seeing how we can support our power users to talk about us more, or identify external people and get them to love Pieces as much as our power users and talk about us and things like that. But starting out, I guess my first day was, I kind of, there was not a lot going on in our marketing stack. And so the first thing that I did was making sure that we are tracking the metrics of people even going to our website, right? Because anything that you do, you need to be able to measure it to see what works, what's not working. And so making sure that we're tracking the downloads of our application, for example. We had no numbers on that before I joined. And so that's the first step. Second step is, I think, those initial touch points with our customers and our users. So email is a great way to reach people. Everyone's used to it. So I think, setting up drip campaigns, for example, when people download the app, to help them learn about the other features that they might not encounter in their first sort of day or two using Pieces. We've tried other things like SEO is one of the biggest channels that we focus on, just providing great content to people. So I'd say that was our first foray into developer, just DevRel in general, where we were leveraging our community, our users, to help us build out our blog. So we write our own internal posts about, the technology that we're creating, and the different features that we have. But it's been a great journey having people in the community write about technical topics that they're fascinated about and they're passionate on writing on, because it brings up all of these niche sort of pieces of content, tutorials and listicles about the tools that they use, and frameworks and other coding related topics that have not only helped us to rank for niche keywords, which is great from a marketing perspective, so that we're getting more traffic to the website, but also it's sort of enabled a huge collection of knowledge that users can come to our site for, and learn about the different languages that they're interested in, or what have you.
Yeah, it's a great point how you brought up, especially around our blogs. And I think we do have a lot of content coming out, not only blogs, obviously, but posts throughout all of our social medias, YouTube videos, live streams. I wanted to talk briefly, while we're still on this kind of DevRel, this will get into kind of our current strategy of DevRel that we're trying out. But I wanted to start back at the content partner program, and then we'll move around the horn. But Cole, when we had the content partner program, a year ago, maybe a little bit more than a year ago, where did you see that kind of going? How did that play out? And then kind of looking towards this new partner program that we have, the social partner program. Then we'll dive into that. But I wanted to start on this content partner program and the thought around that, the idea of just, building evergreen content, things like that.
Right. In terms of actually managing the program, it is a bit difficult, right? A lot of people want to be paid to write a blog post. And so, getting those organically is a bit harder because if you've ever written a blog post, it takes at least a couple hours, oftentimes a lot more. So actually managing the process from talking to these partners, identifying a good topic, matching up that topic with maybe some keywords that we can implement in the blog post after it's published, um, helping to review the initial drafts, and optimizing it for SEO afterwards, publishing it. It is definitely a lot of work, and I think it has paid off. I think organic traffic is probably 80% of everything that we get to the site, which has been great for us. It's great for our community as they get to write about the things that they're interested in. But there are other forms of content that we are interested in as well. And so recently we've been working on this social partner program, and I'll let Rosie jump in and talk about this as well, because she's been doing a lot of work there at the forefront of our user base. But it's an interesting approach that we've been dabbling in as we are sort of supporting these same people and others in our community to publish on their own platforms. So this is an interesting way to integrate our existing content marketing strategy with a DevRel strategy, as we want to reach new audiences, right? Like only so many people are going to find our articles on Google search or wherever we post them on our socials. If they get syndicated to other places and picked up, that's great too. But having people post on their own Hashnote accounts, their Dev2 profiles, I think is really interesting. And it not only sort of brings in a new set of eyes to content that's related to Pieces, but also it just helps support our community to write about the topics that they're interested in, whether that be building an application and somehow it involves Pieces, or it's directly talking about their experience of using Pieces. So these programs have evolved a lot as we've worked with them, and overall it's been a great experience just getting to talk to all these users and find out what works.
Yeah, I was on a Twitter space, I think it was last week. I think it was a job hunt Twitter space, just people looking for new opportunities in the area or in the space. And I think Ellie was on there, who's just joined our DevRel team, and we have a few other amazing DevRel or developer advocates on that team. We'll get to Jim, who's now our new head of developer advocacy, in a minute. But I think it's great that, like you said, we can have people that are just interested in Pieces have that extra just collaboration opportunity where it's like, hey, if you like the product, you can write about it. If you are a technical writer, sure, you can write more technical pieces around the tech that's used. If you're not so much a technical writer, but you still just enjoy writing, maybe you have an interesting use case that you used it for, and you can now use kind of our brand to go along with the platform that you're building on your blog. So it's a great win-win there. And yeah, Rosie, like Cole said, this kind of brings us into this new way that we're building not only our internal DevRel team, but also how we're working with the collaborations and the partnerships with these larger developer advocates that are kind of more freelance, if you will. Maybe they do work for a company, but they're open to work as well outside of that. And maybe you can get like a top level, what is this new partner program that Pieces has, and then kind of our strategy around it going forward.
So it's evolving for sure. We had this idea a few months ago to have social partners, meaning any person who is posting about Pieces on a social platform, we can, compensate them, reshare, just try to elevate where they are. What are they speaking about? Where are they speaking about it? How can we get involved with that area? And, if they're already trying to grow their own platform, we can help them grow their platform, throw them some money as well. And then we kind of all rise together type of thing. So that was the initial idea. And we started with Twitter, or X, sorry. We started with X because it is very easy to track, and it's very popular with DevRel right now. Very and it's easy. It's just a simplistic platform, but and it's going really well. I mean, like Mason said, we've been on a couple Twitter Spaces lately, and it's just kind of blowing up. I've gotten a couple of responses lately that's like, "Wow, I just see pieces all over the place right now," and yes, it's working. And it's cool because it expands with it. Like as more people start talking about pieces, other people start asking about pieces, and then we get inbound people who are interested in partnering with you, and as opposed to us just reaching out to people that we thought would be good. And then people are doing it not even as part of our program because they're like just excited about the product, which is ideal. So I would call this a success. We're about 1 month into it. And I'd like to expand it in a couple different ways because I think X is great, but there's other places that developers are. And Jim likes to talk about the dark matter developers too, the ones who'll never see us on social media. So we have to find people wherever they are. So where's that in Discord communities, on Reddit, and obviously YouTube is a great place, but just all the variety of places, or even GitHub, right? Where are all of our developers? How can we kind of find partners on all of these platforms where we can help this mutual beneficial relationship where we can elevate them and they can elevate us together. So you get some real authentic feedback there.
Yeah, I think I love that. And I remember kind of the starting, I mean, it's only been like a month ago, but it's like, I remember back in the day when we started the social partner program, but I remember it was kind of this brand new thing. We weren't really sure if this would work, but we were willing to give it a shot. And now we have seen kind of it come to fruition. And we're definitely going to double down, more on it. And I want to ask Jim, obviously you bring a very, diverse background from working at Microsoft to, other startups in the same similar space that we are in. I want to know more, obviously the experience that you bring coming in from those kind of backgrounds, but also how you kind of approach. I know you love to bring metrics into your day-to-day, which I love. And we can already see, obviously everything needs to be data driven. You need to see what are you doing and is it working, right? DevRel seems to be kind of a black box, if you will, in that regard. There's a lot of platforms that are trying to solve it, but having kind of these strategies and processes that explain exactly, this is the metric that we're shooting for, this is the metric that maybe we shouldn't shoot for, and we can kind of pivot. But back to the question, Jim, coming into Pieces, I know you're doing a learning series right now. You're seemingly touching all these different touch points with the workshops. How do you see kind of the next 3 months of Pieces, whether it's, building workshops, doing live streams, building out more of our DevRel program in general?
So I see it all about trying to be more targeted. So in DevRel, there's 1,000,001 things you can do. As you say, you can do Twitter Spaces, you could do live streams, you could do podcasts, you could do blog posts, you could go to conferences, you go to meetups, you could host your own events. There's so many ways you can reach your audience. And fundamentally, the role of DevRel is go where developers are and then bring them back to your platforms. And there is no right or wrong way to do DevRel. Every single product is different. Every single community is different. Every single audience is different. So the way you be successful is you measure the things, and then you understand what is working, what is not working, and then you kind of pivot and tweak based off that. We've tried this thing. It's not working. Is it not working because we're doing it wrong, or we should just stop doing it? We tried this thing. It's working. Do we double down on it and then see what happens, or do we go not double down because it worked once, it may not work again? And we're not going to get these answers to these questions without having good oversight on the data. So like Cole mentioned right back at the start, we didn't have how many people downloading the app. We're building up this whole data set, and this is allowing us to have these hypotheses about how we can do things better, and then actually run with it and test it. I mean, I'm not sure how much I can be given away here, but we kicked off some conversations yesterday around what we think is the highest profile thing we can do in the DevRel space, based off the wisdom of the crowd, of everybody on the team, and some work we did to identify kind of the flows that developers go through and what content we have. And so we know what we want to do next. We know what we're going to measure to get an idea whether it's successful or not. We know what product changes we want to bring in to help with this. And then we're going to do this, and then we're going to measure the success. We've already identified one big metric that we want to improve on. So we've got this idea of, users are here. They then, number of users who do the next thing is kind of down here. We want to lift that up. We think this is the way to do that. And so if we see this going up, we see less of a drop off between these 2 points, we know we've been successful. And so my kind of real focus on this, and I know when I was interviewing, a lot of conversations I had with Rosie and Cole and the rest of the team were around being this data driven, having these measurements and doing the experiments. My focus of the next few months is just quantifying everything, making sure that whenever we do anything, we know whether it's successful or not. We know what's successful. We pick the right things to optimize for, and then we kind of focus on that, because we don't want to be doing all the things and not knowing that if it's successful. So very much this data-driven, very targeted, do less but more impactful things, so that we can move the needles that we want to move. And I mean, things like the social partner program, the content partner program we've been talking about. It's great what we're doing. We're getting people to help talk about us. Love the fact we're paying people. A lot of content creators out there. It's great that we're paying them. But one thing we're very focused on with that is the metrics of this. If we're going to pay someone to create content, we want to make sure that it has reach. And I don't mean we're the minutiae of one person getting that magnifying glass out and are you doing a good job? It's all about looking at the program as a whole. Are we increasing our reach? Are we leveraging a community in a very sustainable way that we are almost giving back more to the community than we get, and seeing that growth in place? And I think the numbers that we're seeing so far is yes, that growth is there. So again, how do we keep that program going? And then if we reach a saturation point, with X, the numbers we're seeing is kind of stagnating because we kind of reached where we can reach. How do we then leverage other platforms? LinkedIn, what's LinkedIn going to give us? What's Reddit going to give us? What's TikTok going to give us? I mean, don't ask me. I'm old. I know nothing about this, about the TikToks. But maybe we have young people in the company. I keep joking. I'm less hip, more hip replacement. But maybe there's young people in the company who could then leverage TikTok. So we've got data to say, yes, we've been really effective on Twitter so far, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. But how do we leverage further? What platforms are going to be the most effective? And again, we can run experiments. Let's try on LinkedIn, let's try on Reddit, let's try on YouTube, let's try on TikTok, let's try on Threads, whatever. Very quickly see from the data what's been effective, and then expand in those directions. So it's bringing that metric-driven mindset into everything we do, so we can optimize our activities.
Yeah, absolutely. You nailed it on the head with, just metric driven, data driven. And I wanted to also ask, I mean, obviously the end of the quarter is approaching here. And as we look into kind of the last 2 quarters of the year, especially with, data driven, starting, well, we've always been data driven, but definitely having much more of a focus on it now. How are we seeing, Jim, if you want to hit on this, or anybody, looking at it from a KPI perspective, right? So obviously there are these key performance indicators that, we've brought up, Jim's brought up, but how those kind of play out from a company-wide perspective, whether it's, like Jim said, we have kind of the product features that we know are missing right now. Maybe that is a KPI. We have the content gaps that we know are missing. Maybe that becomes a KPI. Or maybe even, the metric, the numeric, right? The quantitative KPIs as well. And I want to just go back to Jim here. When you approach kind of planning out this next, quarter year, obviously we have a lot coming up with the big July 10th product launch. But even past that, we want to, kind of keep the train going. Are there any kind of really important quantitative or even qualitative results that you're looking for in this next quarter when we come up on Q3?
I mean, really, it's about the DAO, the WOW, and the MAU, as it were, the daily active users, weekly active users, monthly active users, because fundamentally we measure our success by the number of people who use the product. And when we start thinking about pricing tiers and charging, the more people who use the product, the more money we make. And because I don't know about you, I like getting paid. I've got a mortgage to pay. I have a very expensive Lego collection. I like getting paid. And so to me, really that success is how many people are using the product on a regular basis. And that's really the metric that drives us through everything. And then when we think about the content we have to create, again, it all comes down to that. Is that increasing our number of active users? Not only the people who sign up once, but also the people who use it on a regular basis. Do we have this sustainable user base? The comment they used at Microsoft when we looked at this was bow to the MAU. That's what we all have to do. We have to bow to the MAU because that's really what gets us paid. So, when we think about gaps in the product, gaps in the content, all these are about making sure that new users are aware of us. We think about users go on this kind of journey through discovering the product right through to using it on their day-to-day basis. So we need to make sure that users are discovering the product. We're increasing that number consistently so that people discover it and become that kind of first-day user. And then as they're using the product, as they're evaluating it, learn about it, building with it, scaling with it, that they've got all the content in place so we don't get drop-off. We all think about the funnel. We also lots of people at the top of the funnel and less people come down. We need to kind of measure that and know that we've got more people coming at the top of the funnel, and then we're straightening out that funnel as much as possible by identifying the drop-off points and then trying to leverage the content we create to fix those. So yes, the KPI really is how many users are coming in at the top of the funnel and becoming that first day user, and how many users are staying with the product over a period of time. They may not use the product every day, but we want folks who are using it a couple of days, 2-3 days a week on a regular basis continuously for a long period of time. And so as we look around the features of the product and we track those metrics, where are we seeing the drop off? They're coming in, they're doing this, and then they're stopping to use it. Why are they stopping using it? What have they used so far? What have they not used? How do we give them the content to carry on using it? So that really it's still bow to the MAU. That's top of mind for me all the way through. Is just let's keep the users coming in, let's keep them happy.
Yeah. Going through our KPIs each quarter is always a good exercise as we sort of reflect on what we were able to accomplish and what we still need. And, as a young company in the past, setting our KPIs has been sort of, you start with the main KPI, what's the number of daily active users that we want to achieve? What's the monthly active users? And some other things on the product side. And then, you break that down. What are the main sort of objectives that a little bit more granular, such as, how many website users are we going to need? Because based on that, we'll get this many downloads. This many downloads will likely equal this many daily active users. Okay. How do we, and then what are the specific tactics that we need to employ this quarter to increase the number of people coming to our website? And, in the past, it's been build up the content partner program, build up certain things. And I like how Jim's come in and thought a lot more about, what are those specific pieces of content that the developers really need to go from that evaluate stage to that learn stage, for example. Not just the sort of overarching channel of content, whether it's a blog post or a user story or this and that, but looking at it from more of a technical perspective, I think has been really helpful. And Mason knows this as he's been leading the creation of our documentation. We really didn't have much of a docs at all about a year ago, and it's come a long way since then. So continuing to build that out, I think, is going to be one of the next objectives for us this upcoming quarter, having it be more product focused, since we do have a wide array of products that you need to be, detailed as if they were a recipe, and outlining the specific features of each product, as opposed to here's the features of Pieces, because it does vary a little bit in where you're using it.
And you hear that directly from the users too. I mean, one of the benefit of being so involved with our users is they tell you, right? So I had a call with a user today and she was like, I got stuck on onboarding, but I went to your docs and your docs had some great resources in getting me through that. And so there you go. Like that's a clear indicator that we are doing the right thing by having the right documentation, and the users, they'll tell us what they need. I had a different user today saying that they couldn't get through a certain thing in our onboarding process, and very clear that we need to make a change there because it's been consistent with other people telling me the same thing. So it's a combination of reflecting ourselves and reading our own metrics, and then also just getting out there and listening to what our active users are saying, because people want to use this product. When we tell them about it, they're like, this is great. But if they can't get to my magic moment, this is what's clicking for me, this is why I want to keep using this tool, then they'll never stay.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I know that we do have some magic moments coming up, so stay tuned for that, all over our social media and YouTube. But it definitely is. I mean, you're a user first company at the very end of the day, right? The train does not keep going unless the users are giving us that feedback, no matter how, harsh and criticized we get, we are. I think that's it's never bad at the end of the day, right? Obviously there's some people that, there's some platforms that are well known for being very blunt with what they say, but we still love it at the end of the day, and we take it head on. And just like Rosie says, no matter what product we're talking about, whether it's our docs, which are more kind of user facing and support oriented, or it's our actual products that, people need to work. And this needs to work for those people that they're buying into our company, they're buying into our vision. And if it doesn't, then they definitely, tell us and we'll fix it. I'm sure Rosie has plenty of stories through the support funnel of that.
Well, I like the angry users because anger and hate are the same thing essentially, right? Or sorry, anger and love are the same thing essentially, right? Anger and hate. So it's if someone is yelling at me because Pieces isn't working, I'm like, great, because this person cares so deeply about Pieces working. We are essential to their workflow. Yell at me all day and we'll fix it together or immediately, because that's what we want to hear.
Yeah, I think we're really underemphasizing how important the feedback loop is. We talk about this content partner program, but our DevRels mean so much more to us than that. There's also beyond, creating content for our blog or their blog or what have you, also just being on the front lines of talking to other users. So, cultivating this great Discord channel that we have and being active on there and helping to field some of the questions that our users have, because we're a small team, we're focusing on building, we don't have enough time to often answer these questions, and so they bring those things to our attention, and they also help other users find and fix those bugs that they might have. I think it's really important to just create that direct point of conversation with our team, because we're juggling a lot of things, and that feedback loop is just so important to us.
Yeah,
there's nothing that makes me happier than. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So it's kind of inherent in the name Developer Advocacy. We advocate for developers. Developer advocacy is not about advocating to developers. It's also about advocating for developers. In some ways, we almost work for our communities first. People think about advocating to when they think about code and content and community. Well, no, advocating for the product feedback side of it is so important. And that's why it's kind of good that developer advocates are engineers first, because they can very much empathize with the user. We need to bring that empathy for our users back to the product teams and say, hey, look, this is not working. It's very easy when you're working on the product to kind of think, hey, this is really cool, I like this, or yeah, this doesn't work, but it doesn't matter because I'm working on something else, and not have that empathy for our end users. And so part of advocacy is to advocate for those users and come back and say, no, I'm sorry, but this isn't working. This is why. Here's the anecdata. So here's the stories we've heard from people that are saying this isn't working. And then where possible, here's the real world data. This is we're seeing by metrics that people aren't using this feature because whatever reason, we think the reason is this based off what we're hearing from users. Can we come to a resolution to fix it? So it's very, very important we listen to our users. It's almost like we work for the users more than we work for our employer.
Yeah, absolutely. If you haven't gotten anything out of this episode, it's that users are important. Hopefully we've gotten that across at least. But as we're kind of wrapping things up here, I wanted to talk about, just our DevRel internal team as well. So obviously we're building that out. And we have an amazing group of developer advocates. One recently just joined as well. And maybe Rosie, do you want to talk a little bit about that kind of internal group and how we think about their roles compared to working obviously with us in our brand, but then also building their own brands and how that relationship is.
So we have several kind of more like contractor style DevRels, and we have a couple full-time DevRels. Jim being the head of that, and but the DevRels that work with us on like a kind of more of a part-time basis, they're just so integral to our work because they're kind of tireless. They exist online. They exist in developer advocacy because this is maybe not their full-time gig, or they're doing multiple or whatever, whatever there is, they want to do dev advocacy all day long. And they have such an interest in it. Like, they're excited. They are just kind of living in it all the time. They're working on their own projects and building their own brand. And then they're working with other companies and building their brand. And so when we have people like that working when Pieces is the brand, we get elevated so much, because wherever those people are working, like what projects they're interested in, which communities they're interested in, we also just happen to go along with them because they're taking Pieces wherever they go. And my favorite thing is to just be on X or somewhere and someone asks a question and the DevRels have gotten there ahead of me. Like they've already answered the question and they've linked them to the docs. And it's just like, these people are just so ambitious and excited and enthusiastic about their job. And I also think that we're really in a lucky time right now, because dev advocacy is still kind of growing in like, what is dev advocacy? So everyone is trying everything, and it's so fun to be a part of and watching other people throw things at the wall. But anyways, having our group with us has been wonderful. We added one new Ellie lately, one new person, Ellie, lately. And what's been great about that is she is a budding dev advocate, in that she didn't even call herself a dev advocate until I told her she was a dev advocate like a month ago. And she was like, oh, but I'm not. And I'm like, no, you are actually doing these activities without labeling yourself, without getting paid to do it, So it has been really cool to have kind of a new, fresh voice that's also bringing the authenticity of just a developer trying to exist publicly. So it's been really great to have this group of people with us and advocating for us.
Yeah. And I truly love the fact that, almost, if not all developer advocates, they do have the developer background, right? They're used to sitting, writing code for hours on end every day. But then now that they have a platform to talk about it, they're super passionate about what they talk about. And so, I love hopping on Twitter Spaces and talking about, the latest tech, the latest whatever. And it's crazy because, like you said, even when I jump in Twitter Spaces, some of our own developer advocates are already in there. And I was like, okay. And then I go to Discord and I'm like, okay, someone needs help. And then right away, Chevet or somebody, Chevet's one of our developer advocates, he's responded to them already and their answer is solved. And I also want to, shout out some of we haven't labeled them specifically, but community heroes is what we're getting to with some of these very important users that we have that are in our community that help out, whether it's support, feedback, organically, talking about Pieces in their own workflow and their own life. We're definitely going to do some more work and shout them out in the future because they're so integral. Just being a hero of a product that you truly like, use, and care about is better than, obviously any monetary benefit. Everyone loves getting paid, but at the end of the day, if you have a true passion about it, people are going to see that and they're going to know that, wow, this person actually cares about whatever they're advocating for.
Right, right. One thing that, I want to shout out about our core group of internal developer advocates is that they're kind of like just a factory for good ideas. And it touches every part of our business, really. They'll come up with an idea for, a Twitter space, or they'll say, "Oh, this type of social media post is working really well. We should try this." Or, "Hey, do we have a blog post about this? I think this would be a great topic. A lot of people, it's a trending tool that a lot of people are asking about." Or, "Hey, we need this on our documentation." Or, "The product needs this feature or this bug fixed." And it's just been awesome to, as many of us are heads down working on one specific thing, our product or our company is sort of oriented around many different individuals who are owning one aspect of the product. And so you can get sort of caught up in your own work sometimes, and having a fresh perspective from a developer advocate who is talking to so many different people and seeing all these different tactics happening can be really useful for us to be able to adapt to the changing times and make sure that we have the right pieces of content at the right time.
And I want to just like give a full on shout out to Amitesh and Arindam and Chave. Those are three dev advocates who've been with us for a while, and they just are everywhere, and their ideas are nonstop, and they're great sounding boards all the time. When I'm like, "Hey, there's this influencer that reached out. What do you guys think?" And they just have a whole list. They know everything about that person and who is following them, and have we targeted their community before, and here's new places. So again, just a big shout out to our team. We're very, very grateful for our group.
Very
It definitely is
grateful.
a really interesting idea for running DevRel through essentially fractional dev advocates. I think that's the current hip term for what is really would have been called part-time in the past. Is each dev advocate has their own community, their own circle, their own group that they interact with and work with. So if you employ one full-time dev advocate, they have one circle that they reach. If you employ multiple fractional dev advocates, that expands that reach. So as you say, they know different people, they know different communities, they're in all these different spaces, and so just be able to kind of scale a little bit through having these fractional folks who each have their own circles. You don't end up with just one person in an echo chamber. So it's the first time I've seen this done. And I think it's a phenomenal idea, and obviously a great opportunity for people who want to build their own brand whilst working with one or more other companies.
Yeah.
I mean, it's exactly. It gives them a chance to also. I mean, it works for both sides. It's very great for us, but from their side, if they're pursuing school or education, or if they're trying to build their own thing and they just need part-time work, it's just it kind of feeds into that gig economy style of work.
Especially students. I mean, there's so many students who they really want to grow their resume. They want to make themselves a lot more employable. And a lot of them are kind of getting into DevRel because they've run their own communities. They've been running the Computer Science Society, or their GitHub Campus experts, Microsoft Learn Student Ambassadors. So they're already used to building community. And it's like, hey, in your spare time, would you like us to pay you to do kind of what you're doing already? Yeah, I mean, I got into DevRel by being paid to do what I was doing in my spare time, but same kind of idea. You're already doing this. How about we chuck some money your way to do it for us? I think it's a fantastic model and a great opportunity for a lot of folks to kind of really get into this space in a professional basis.
Yeah.
It's been really fun running these programs because a lot of people, I think a broad theme around Pieces is that we are inclusive and accessible. Our product spans across all three major operating systems: Mac OS, Windows, and Linux. We have all of these different integrations with different tools. We have open source that developers can engage in, and we get people contacting us through any form that they find on our website, really, whether it's the actual contact us form or you're going through the suggest a plugin form and saying, "Hey, do you have any jobs open? I'd love to work for you." So seeing that interest in what we're doing, what we're building, and having people want to be a part of it is really inspiring for us. And it's sort of spurred a lot of these different programs because it made us realize there's so many different things that we could do. And so we're kind of just throwing everything at the wall right now and seeing what works, and then going from there. It's been a fun process.
Yeah. And I specifically like making kind of the analogy to the current kind of developer advocate to kind of maybe current but past kind of sales people, right? So usually, when you're a salesperson, you have a list of clients that you likely bring from company to company, and people will definitely hire you because of the clients that you bring to them. So it's almost a direct relation to when you think of a developer advocate. They have a brand, they have a community that they built, whether it's followers or subscribers or whatever, and they bring that from place to place, and that's the value that they bring. I also like making the reference of like an NBA player. It's like 20 years ago, people had their NBA team, but now they have their NBA player, their favorite player. I don't have a favorite team anymore. I have favorite players. So I definitely have favorite developer advocates, right? Similar concept there. And I think that is where a lot of things, even outside of tech, are going, where it's more on an individual basis. They're building a brand, an image, a community, a following around that person, around themselves, and they can bring that anywhere. And that builds tremendous value, not only monetarily, but like qualitatively. When you're looking at somebody and they have a very strong following across every single platform, that is a much more impressive person to meet right off the bat, even if I've never talked to them. And so, yeah, I mean, it's an amazing thing. I was on, another Twitter space last week, and I have maybe 400 followers on Twitter right now, but in the entire call, I was the least followed person. And I was like, this is amazing, because it's just everyone follows each other and they've been building those brands for so long. I'm like, well, if you can throw some followers my way, that'd be great. No, I'm just kidding. But, but no, I love it. And it's honestly a new thing for me. I mean, maybe I've been doing this for a little less than a year now, but still, it's a absolutely great experience. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's a great time to wrap up. Cole, do you want to add one more thing?
I just wanted to mention, one last thing. It just shows the importance of building in public. And we at Pieces, everyone here, the engineers, they try to display the things that they're working on. So, Rutvik takes screen recordings of the Pieces web extension that he's building and showcases it. And, I think as a budding developer advocate for any of you out there, it's important to show what you're doing and continue having these passions and building your own projects. That's really what's going to make you shine as a developer advocate, if that's the path you want to go on, the type of gigs you want to get into, because it shows that you're interested in a lot of different things. You're building your own thing you can build a brand around that, build a following around, hey, I'm just building this app, or I'm working on this open source project, or whatever.
Absolutely.
And it gives you a platform to also talk about other things as you come along, just interests that you have, or companies that you want to shout out. And I think that's what makes the developer advocacy community so exciting, is like everyone has their own passions and we're all sort of working together to just create great software.
Yeah, I would
Be
say,
authentic with it.
yeah,
Be
I actually
authentic.
just bought
Authenticity. So,
go ahead, Jim.
so I say just be authentic with it. Authenticity is so important. You don't want to be fake. Great mantra for developer advocacy is help first, sell last, and it's just be yourself, be your own person, build things publicly, do it to help people, and just be honest as to who you are, and that resonates so well. You're not just like a corporate generated face for something. You are an individual human, and we all appreciate the human.
Exactly right. Yeah. I was just going to say, I went to Micro Center yesterday and bought a Raspberry Pi for the first time. And it's amazing. I've just been playing around with it. And I was trying to load, I think I ran it. There you go. Ran into the same issue that Jim did. This is, a side project. But I built a little vision processing thing, and I can track my face using a webcam. And so I'm going to post about that. That's my one advice to anybody that's, has a developer background or maybe wants to get into developing, that will eventually probably lead to developer advocacy, is building side projects. Because that will not only, it's like, hey, while you're, you can be full-time, you still have the weekends. If you really are passionate about something, go build it. Go show people while you're building it, live stream while you're building it. Because people truly like that type of content. I will watch someone for 2 hours on my TV at night, build something real time, because I have a passion for it. So that is probably a great way to end this episode, for us nerding out on developing side projects. But I wanted to thank everyone here. Obviously, main things that we are focused on, obviously user first, everything. Going to really start hammering down on this data drivenness. Obviously, everything that we've been doing since the company's first started has been KPI focused, but on a more developer advocacy focused, developer relations, strategy, having that much more data driven going forward. And obviously we have, to shout out some of the conferences we have coming up, tons and tons of conferences. And the July 10th product hunt launch day, which is going to be massive. I think we may even be doing a live stream that day as well. So always be on the lookout. We're always, whether it's Jim doing a learning series, or anybody just jumping on a live stream, I think most days of the week we are in front of cameras. And so you can always stop by and say, hey. But any last thoughts?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, check out our, it's a little bit nested on our docs, but if you click on resources, community, and then events, we have a list of the conferences that we're going on.
There you go.
We have, more coding in context podcast episodes and some other things we're attending. So if you want to come to any of those conferences, reach out to us. We have discounts often at these things. So we'd love to see you there. And thanks for having us, Mason.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Rosie. Thanks, Cole. Thanks, Jim, for your time. And we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thanks, Mason. Talk soon.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.